is the power of active listening. So I wanted to start off today's session by just everyone thinking about this one scenario. So have you ever been in a conversation maybe where someone was technically there with you, they were physically present in the conversation, but you could tell that they weren't clearly listening in to what you were saying? Maybe you could see that they were nodding along, giving like some sort of signs that they were sort of listening, giving you like the general yep. But you could tell that as you were talking to that person, you could tell that they weren't really present in the conversation. Or maybe if we switch the narrative, maybe deep down, maybe you've been that person. Maybe while someone was talking to you, you were instead thinking of the next task. Maybe you were probably checking your phone, maybe trying to rehearse what your reply will be to the other person before that person has even finished their sentence. There's the idea that you are nodding along, you're making eye contact with the other person or other people, and you're really, really leaning in and taking in what someone is saying. Another thing is you're reflecting back or you're paraphrasing on what someone is saying. So you will take in what someone has just said, maybe take a bit of a pause, and then you could say something like, so what I'm hearing is, and then reflect back on what they've just said, give a sort of overview. And another thing, finally, is asking some thoughtful follow-up questions. Just ask some questions to go a little bit deeper into the conversation, show that you were listening, ask a question on a certain detail of the conversation to show that you were listening and you'd like to know a little bit more. And active listening in general, it's a skill that can be learned and practiced and definitely refined over time. And I think that the difference that it makes when you are truly actively listening in a conversation, it's huge, in my opinion. So why does active listening matter in everyday life, for example? Let's start there. Because I think we tend to underestimate how much of life is shaped around how well we listen in a situation. Let's take a relationship or a friendship, for example. Being a good listener in that sort of sense, it shows that you're empathetic. It can show that it can help others feel seen and valued in that sense when you're truly listening in. If we take this scenario, if we take our situation, for example, a lot of the work we're doing in teams. So actively listening in a team, it can help improve things like collaboration, help resolve things like conflicts early on, and avoid any sort of misunderstandings. You're actively listening and taking in everyone's perspective, everyone's ideas. You're ensuring that no one's going unheard. And it links back to the other session that we had on teamwork that was done by Christopher, I believe, which again, a big part of teamwork is also listening in and making sure you take in everyone's perspectives. And I think personally, on just a personal level, listening deeply to someone can really build that trust. It can give the other person or other people that sort of feeling that they do have a safe space to open up. And when people feel heard, they are more likely to listen in return. It's trying to think of the phrase that I'm thinking of, but it's you put out into the world what you'd like back in, something like that. But yeah, you'd show the same respect to people that you'd like back. So that's sort of active listening in the everyday life sort of sense. So I just want to try and link it to what we're doing at the moment. So if we take in listening in the accounting and finance aspect, for example, we can use this skill quite a lot in this area. So accounting and finance, on the surface, it just all seems like numbers. So we've got things like spreadsheets, statements, reports. But if you think about it, all of those numbers and all of those tasks that we're doing, there are loads of people behind it. We've got our clients, we've got our stakeholders, we've got the different managers that are involved. And essentially what I'm trying to say is that every number reflects something like a decision, a need from the client, or maybe a concern that a company has. So let me say, for example, in this sense, for accounting and finance, let's say we have a finance manager. They are working with a client who want to build a budget. Now, this finance manager could focus solely on the data and not fully listen in on what the client is really wanting to prioritize. And because of not actively listening into what the client wants, this finance manager could produce probably something that probably produce the most perfect budget on paper, follows every guideline, everything's perfect. But because they haven't been actively listening, it would completely miss the mark in real life of what this client really needs for their company. And so a completely perfect budget on paper would be rendered pretty much useless because they weren't listening in and taking in what the client really wanted. So in these sorts of cases, listening can sort of help us uncover the real priorities of what someone really needs or wants. So a client might say something like, we want to cut costs. But if we take in and use deeper listening, we might be able to hear that what they're really worried about is cash flow, and it's not just their costs and their expenses that they're worried about. And now that we know it's not just costs, but it's cash flow, maybe it can change the approach that we take entirely to how we help this client. And so in accounting and finance, active listening will mean things like asking follow-up questions during the conversation, not immediately jumping to the conclusion based on the numbers or the data that the client has given us alone, ensuring that we're truly present in the meetings, catch any sort of subtle concerns or like anything that doesn't really line up, and just really taking in what someone has said. So yeah, active listening, it's not just about accuracy, but it's about truly aligning to what the customer or the client wants, truly understanding, and then also being able to gain that long-term trust with that person. So we've talked about sort of the different ways that active listening does come up. We've talked about it in our sector, we've talked about it in everyday life, but let's just think about the sort of common barriers and misconceptions. So why is it that we don't always listen actively? Because sometimes, sometimes we don't do it on purpose. We might be the person that we realize isn't actively listening in on something, but we sometimes just might not mean it. We don't mean to be rude. We might just not realize that we're doing it. So what is it that's not allowing us, or maybe just not making us listen actively? So one of the things could be that we're distracted. We've got phones, notifications, and to-do lists. We've got loads of things going on, and it leads to us being in a rush because we've got so much other stuff going on that we're not truly taking in what someone's saying. This leads on to the next point of we're in a rush constantly. We're trying to shortcut the conversations because we're trying to think about, okay, we need to go to this next task after this, or I've still got A, B, and C left to do. Another thing could be that we assume that we already know what the other person is going to say. And because we're in that sort of mindset of, oh, I already know what this person is going to go on about, I don't really have to pay attention. But obviously, that's not true. You never know what this person is going to say. We can always actively listen because there might be a new detail involved that we don't know about. Or finally, we start to focus on more so being right in the conversation than being present and truly like taking in what someone is saying. sometimes we can even just listen in on a conversation just to immediately jump in with our own story or our own solution. And while that is human, we're excited. We want to be able to bring in our point and be able to. It might be in a way that when we jump in so quickly, we feel like we are helping, but it actually often leaves the other person feeling unheard because you're immediately going in with your own side of the story without really taking in what the other person is saying. So the truth is, in general, that listening isn't always going to be easy, but it's always worth it to always try and listen in to what someone is saying. So we've talked about sort of what are the things that makes us not actively listen. How do we try and help ourselves to get better at it? Or how can we improve? So a couple of things that we have are we can pause before we respond. So someone's having a conversation with you, just take a little bit of time to just sit and take in what they've just said, because it can help you really fully absorb on what someone has just said and show that you're not really rushing in. You're willing to take the time to really take in what someone has said to give the right response to what they've been talking to you about. Another thing is you can ask open-ended questions. We've talked about this at the beginning. Just ask some more sort of questions to get a bit more depth into the conversation. So can you tell me more about this? Can you tell me more about that? Just go in on those little details and show that you are interested in what's being said. And finally, another thing would be to put your distractions away. When you're having a conversation with someone and you want to try and actively listen, just try and turn your phone over, maybe close your laptop, or just it goes again back to that body language of moving your distractions away and fully facing and taking in what someone is saying, because it can send that sort of strong signal that you are truly, truly present and you are listening in on the conversation. I understand that I'm saying these things of like, oh, just do this, this, and this, just to like, you really need to be listening. But I understand that there are real situations where it's not easy to start listening in and doing these things straight away, because sometimes, again, we can get distracted easily, our minds going everywhere. But if we can just take these small steps and these small shifts, they can really help us build up on our connection, our clarity, and our confidence in every conversation that we make and with whoever. And it also helps build up that big, strong sort of network and relationship, which I think is very important in the sort of field that we are working in, to be able to gain the trust of other people and our clients, and just gain that opportunity in networking to just gain that respect and trust. So yeah, that's my sort of perspective on active listening, that it's more than just a sort of a general communication skill, but overall it's a mindset and a sort of way to show up for others, and also build trust, and also catch the things that are sort of being said and also unsaid. So just think about it whilst you're talking to other people today. Just whilst you're talking to other people, see if you can try and change about how you are listening, show that you are truly paying attention to what someone is saying, and just take that time to pause, slow down, and really tune in and take in what someone is saying. So I'd like to open the floor to everyone else. If anyone else would be happy to provide their thoughts or their ideas on the topic. Just maybe think about a situation, or maybe was there a time where someone was truly listening into you? And when they were, how did it make you feel heard? And did you feel seen? Or switch up the situation, was there a time where you could tell someone wasn't listening to you? And when they weren't listening into you, how did that make you feel? Or did that change up the situation in some way. So I'd be happy to invite any ideas or thoughts if anyone has anything they'd like to say.
Hi, everyone. Hi, yeah. Can I go?
Morning, Satare. Yeah, of course.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Tia, for this wonderful topic. I think you mentioned everything. I just want to emphasize on a few things that you mentioned. First of all, I would like to say that active listening is an ongoing practice. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to practice every day to be better, to be a better listener. Honestly, I've been practicing, for a few years now to be a good listener and to actively listen to what the other person is saying. And one thing from your last words I want to emphasize on is that as a human being, we always want to share our point of view, and we want to share an experience from our side to that topic. So that's really harmful, I think, because the person that you are, the person that is talking to you and you're listening to them, they want to share their points, and you have to you don't want to just listen to put in your words in the conversation. You have to listen to them to hear what they are saying and what is their point of view. That is really hard, easy to say, but really hard to, in terms of action. But you have to do that, you in personal life and in workplace, in professional life. I think you have to work on that, because that's something a human being wants to do, and it's natural, so that needs a lot of practice, because you are going on the opposite side of your natural human being manners. So that's something I think everyone should consider. I practiced a lot to not want to just share my experience, my point of view, my thing, and try to hear your point of view, your ideas, and your comments. And I think that's really important, and it needs practice. Believe me, it needs a lot of practice, because that's how human beings are. But both personally and professionally, we have to practice for that. You asked for an experience of ourselves. I would like to share that there are a few people in your life that are good listeners for you. I can say for myself, a few people in my family, my sisters, my mom, my husband. Those are the people that are always listening to me just because I am talking, and they want to hear me, and they want to hear my points of view. But professionally, if I like to say, professionally in Moracle, I think people in Moracle are good listeners. They are not just listening, to share their point of view. They are listening because you have something to say. And I think that's it from my side. Thank you, Tia.
Yeah, thank you, Sotari. I definitely agree that it does tend to be, I would also say the same, that it does tend to be like your family and your family that really do tend to listen in on what you're saying, and they do actively listen. And I definitely agree over here as well. Like every time that I've been in a team collaboration with someone, everyone is truly actively listening and taking in what you're saying, because it's a strong skill in a team working aspect. So it's a very strong skill to have, and it's very important. Um, and yeah, it's definitely a good skill to try and improve on and work on. So yeah, I definitely agree. But yeah, thank you very much, Satara, for that. Christopher, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Tia, for the topic. I'll just give my 2 cents on what I believe active listening is. I believe active listening is very reciprocal in nature. And as Tia said, you get back what you put in. And I think we should all be aware of that because you want to be reckoned, especially when it comes to clients, like giving an enhanced personalized experience enabled by collecting all that, like the subtle uh, indications that they weren't truly aware of, but you can pick up on it. That will enable you to tend to those unique needs, and it leads to more enhanced customer satisfaction and retention. So yeah, it should be very important to put in active listening into meetings and stuff. Thank you for the topic.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely agree. It's those subtle things, like you said, during the client meetings, where if we can show that we are taking in those small details because of active listening, it does make a very big difference. So yeah, again, brings up on if we can work on this skill and truly show that we are truly listening in and letting the other people feel heard, then it's very important. So yes, thank you, Christopher, for that. I would have liked if any other people would bring in their points, but I do think that we are out of time. So thank you, everybody, generally for listening in and for your thoughts and just, yeah, for being here. Thank you, everybody.